When incorporating whole grains into your desserts, it's important to know that they can't be swapped cup for cup with all-purpose flour. Whole grain flours require more liquid, so making a one-to-one switch without adding the appropriate amount of moisture can lead to a baked good with the texture of a brick. Also, whole grain flours can become rancid quickly because of their oil content. When they get old, they'll taste dank, musty, and mildewy. To preserve them for as long as possible, store them in the refrigerator or the freezer. If you only use flour once a year, buy a new bag each year. When baking with whole grains, follow these substitution guidelines. Whole wheat pastry flour includes the entire grain in the flour, so it's more nutritious and it contains more fiber than all-purpose flour. Whole wheat pastry flour is also finer than regular whole wheat flour. Substituting 50% of all-purpose flour with whole wheat pastry flour is a great way to bump up nutrition and fiber while keeping cakes soft and tender. Einkorn wheat was first cultivated over 12,000 years ago. It's still grown today, much the way it was then. It contains 80% of the whole grain. Keep the total amount of einkorn to 50% of the total flour in the recipe. The tiny teff grain, about the size of a poppy seed, has a strong, nutty, earthy flavor and is naturally gluten-free. Substitute 25% of all-purpose flour with teff flour in baked goods to ensure the cake, bread, or cookie has a gluten structure to rise. In the last 20 years or so, growth in popularity and production of kamut has skyrocketed. Korashan wheat, trademarked as kamut, adds an earthy, sweet, and toasty flavor to baked goods. I love it because the flavor is wheaty without tasting overly grassy or earthy. Substitute up to 50% of all-purpose flour with kamut. High in protein and gluten-free, amaranth adds a strong, earthy, nutty, malty flavor to baked goods. Substitute about 25% of the all-purpose flour with amaranth flour. Nut flours and nut meals are really the same thing. They're nuts with or without the skins left on, finely ground to an almost flour-like consistency. For a flavor boost, I toast the nut flours before adding them to the other ingredients to draw out those essential oils. Store nut flours in an airtight container in the freezer. Substitute up to 25% of all-purpose flour with nut flours. Break out of your routine. Try adding nut flours or ancient grains for a flavor adventure.